Each event is focused either on people or a process. In the process sessions, we talk about how we deliver value in our business. Topics here include lean tools and thinking, operational excellence, sustainability, and digital transformation. In the people sessions, we look beyond the process to the who, discussing topics like leadership, teams, culture, and professional development. Never Mind the Buzzwords isn't just an event that you attend. It's an event to participate in. So get involved in the conversation, put your camera on if you can, share your thoughts, ideas, yourself. And don't forget to stay in touch. We have a LinkedIn group where we upload resources and recordings from this community. And if you've Never Mind the Buzzwords on Eventbrite, you'll be notified whenever we post a new event.
Good morning, everyone. I think Zoom might have quit unexpectedly on me in the middle of all that. I'm not sure if something dropped off. Julie, did something drop off there?
I wasn't sure if it was just me. I thought I was going to blame my own internet. I was getting a bit worried. I think it's okay though.
Okay, I think I'm back on that. Could you see my screen? Did my screen came back, did it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, grand. Yeah, I'm not sure. It just said Zoom quit unexpectedly. I think that is a just me question. It's something that we always have. It's the zoomed out phrase that we can probably coin for ourselves going forward. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us here today for Never Mind the Buzzwords. Great to see so many here, and a lot of people will be accessing the recording of this, which will be up on YouTube later on as well. Today we're going to talk about not so much about goal setting. We're talking about like the one thing we can focus on and why we choose one thing, but also about kind of a couple of things that we can, a couple of ideas across the pillars of our business of things that we can actually do to make up those one things, or what should form our list. With us today is as usual Julie O'Sullivan here from Jigsaw. Hello, Julie. Good morning.
Hello.
And
Morning.
Sophie Deans, who looks after green and sustainability here in Jigsaw as well. Good morning, Sophie.
Hi, folks. How are you?
Hi, Sophie.
Hello.
So yeah, no, so great to have everyone here. So you know, I came across this proverb recently, you know, about focus and one thing, and it's an old Russian proverb of if you chase two rabbits, you won't catch either one of them. And really, if we want to create sustainable change.
Okay.
It's back again.
Stuart, are you
You back?
disappeared for a second? Are you back?
I'm back again. I'm back again. Yeah. I'm just doing this to make Sophie feel easier and everybody to feel less more at ease with the technology.
Exactly.
My screen is gone. You're not seeing my screen, are you?
No.
No. Do you want me to share mine?
No, it's great. I'll pop it back up here now. Give me 1 second. That's right, Ronan. I was off chasing a rabbit. Yeah, I was doing a workshop with a company recently about agile, and like that with agile, you focus on the particular instance or the user story that's there, and we don't get distracted. And we were talking about the instance of the squirrel, of getting the dog being distracted by the squirrel as we go about doing things. Okay, I think I'm back in business, am I?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, super. Guys, you just gotta, if you're not muted, you might just mute yourselves there, just in case any kind of sounds are coming through. But yeah, about, you know, focusing on one thing and trying to go deep on that one thing. So, you know, choosing which rabbit it is that you're going to chase, or which goal it is that you're going to chase. They might be big goals, might be small goals, but it's about just picking one and trying to go for it as best as possible and to the best of your ability. And that in itself can be a secret to mastery in what we do. And I know next month's session, Julie's going to talk a bit more about the practical steps for goal setting and the types of behavior change that it incurs. But one thing actually that's well, one thing, pardon the pun, that also came across recently was a book called That One Thing by Gary Keller. And it kind of sets out the premise of, what's one thing that you can do? Okay, so if you look across everything that you have to do, what's one thing that you can do such that by doing it, everything else will become easier or maybe even unnecessary? And that's the type of a focus we want to take to prioritizing, So what is that one thing we can do, because we all have the same number of hours in the day, but some people seem to get an awful lot more done than others. And one of the tips he kind of gives in the book there is about kind of, going small, so what's small, what's an incremental change that we can make? What's one thing we can focus on today, like this week, the second, right now? What's that one thing we can do? And focusing on that small thing that'll have an impact on the next thing. So similar to a set of dominoes, okay? Line up enough dominoes, click the first one, that's all the effort, and the rest will fall due to that chain reaction. And in the book, he talks about, the effect of an actual single domino can actually knock over something that's 50% larger than itself within it as well. So if you imagine we have all our problems sorted out, and what's the one thing we could do that will make the next thing or everything easier, that next thing can be 50% larger than the first thing, and if we go from that knocking over that first thing, by the 18th domino, if we had 18 dominoes or problems and we start with a small one, that 18th domino would be the same size as the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But a 31st domino, in our row, if we get 50% larger each time, would be as big as Mount Everest. So it kind of really lays out that simplicity of, what's one thing we can do, make everything easier, do that, then what's the next thing, and what's the next thing. Also the concept that everything is equal. We have a lot of things. If we use a prioritization grid, which I know a lot of you may have used before, where we rate things by whether they're urgent or important, we probably find there's a lot of things that are urgent and a lot of things that are important. It's very important to put another aspect to that is, what will the impact be of that? Adding a third leg to that to-do list. What difference will it make if I do this? And using that to help us differentiate or discriminate between all of the tasks that we have and work out, that everything isn't always equal. The other thing he kind of talks about in the book, which we talk about a lot, anyone who's done lean programs, and I know a lot of you have taken part in lean programs as well, is multitasking and the whole myth of multitasking, and really that, doing two things more than once, is not something we can actually do. So, we need to focus on one thing and build discipline into our lives and build habits into that as well. So kind of starting to focus in on a particular habit that we can have that's going to have a positive impact on us and support us to do more and start to build that habit over time. Julie, you know more about habits probably than most of us here. Good habits, of course.
I don't know about that, yeah.
But building habits. I won't say bad habits, although she has a few.
Yeah, I suppose I put up a post recently there just about a book that I read, Atomic Habits, which I'd say a lot of people have come across or read, by James Clear. If you haven't read it and you don't even really want to read it, he also just has a load of really useful resources online, like even just short blogs on his website. So Atomic Habits is a good one. It's a good resource. But I suppose, yeah, it's I think he talks a little bit about, say, that idea of kind of willpower. And just as you were talking there about, people seem to get more done in the day, and you might think, oh, they just have more willpower or discipline than I do. But, for all of us, our willpower is limited. If we're relying only on that, we probably won't get too far. So it's, like you kind of say, setting up the systems so that it's easier, that any of the barriers that could get in the way of you achieving what you want to achieve are removed, and that it's satisfying or rewarding when you do kind of do that thing that feeds into your habits, and just, I suppose, like you say, breaking it down into something really, really small, as opposed to thinking of, okay, well, I'm here and I need to be up here. It's those tiny little changes and steps that you can take, which I think kind of ties in with what we're talking about today. It's shrinking it down and focusing in on just even one thing that might benefit you in different areas of your business.
Yeah, and that willpower, I think it's good to know yourself. I think, which you're probably going to talk a little bit about later on. Know, when is a good time of the day for you to do these things, and especially if it's your own goals and your own achievements. But even in work, to try and make sure, look, this isn't a good time. I know, early on, we might have done this in one of the buzzwords. We had this ways of working document, Julie, which kind of, especially as we got into the remote working and the hybrid working over the last couple of years, it was kind of connecting with everybody in our team and kind of starting to understand, well, what's your preferred way? What are your better hours? Is the morning better for you? How do we like to be communicated with? We haven't done anything on buzzwords on that, Julie, have we?
Yeah, we shared that. We talked about it. It was probably a good few months ago at this stage. Andre might just pop into the chat a link to where we keep those shared resources, so people can find that. It's probably a good while back, but yeah, it's the ways of working document that, like you say, helps people to just sort of outline how do they like to be managed, or to manage others, to communicate, to interact, things like that.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, no, it's a good document, and like that, it helps people kind of communicate with their team when is a good time, when they are generally more productive. But this book by Gary Keller and these concepts, they're not really new to us in the lean world, and I mean, because we work off this right from the start with lean manufacturing and lean production, the batching versus the single piece flow, which was always the mindset that multitasking is bad. In production or in our services, batching is the practice of making large lots of a particular item or particular service to gain efficiencies. And there's an assumption there that the increased efficiency that batching gives us, is good. But actually what happens is that it starts to build in waste and inefficiency into a process. There's a video playing here, which we'll also share in the assets later on as well, which demonstrates how batch production can result in 50 units in a minute, but single piece flow can actually reduce in 14 units. It takes 50 seconds to make 10 units, where a single piece flow actually allows us to get all the units done in 14 seconds, which really kind of demonstrates that single piece flow as a concept produces products that eliminates waste and inefficiency from a process, and focusing on one thing and bringing one thing to completion really is the way to go, which is one of the core tenets of lean, is producing our products or service in the smallest possible increment that we can actually do. And this will help us to increase cycle time, and that products start to get pulled. It also allows us to take into account customer variation and changes from there as well. And so look, we'll pop this video into the chat as well, and you can see how that's demonstrated, which kind of brings us on to our first area to talk about is lean in our operations. And if we're to focus on one thing to change in your operations or in your processes for the coming year, it's something that annoys you. And I'm not talking about myself here, and I'm not talking about people. So let's not go and identify the annoying people in our business, but just think about yourselves in your role, in your position. What annoys you? What bugs you? I've popped a couple of pictures up here in the slide of annoying or irritating things, but we all know we have these things in the business. Why something never works? Why a person always leaves a thing this way? Why things can never be found? What is it that annoys you within your business, within your process, and commit to improving that process. Okay, that's it. Find something that annoys you and commit to improving that. How to go about improving that? We kind of covered it in one of the later sessions of last year. Is go to the process and try and understand it as best as you can. And as I said, we can link back to this particular session that we had with Eamon and Kasia about the Gemba, is going to where the problem occurs. So go to where the thing is that annoys you, work with the people who are closest to work, and try and make it better. So we call it the Gemba, and as I said, we have a whole buzzword session done on it, and I'm happy to chat to anyone about it as well. But really, by going to the Gemba, we want to familiarize ourselves with the actual problem by seeing the facts at source, and draw a link to the kind of the greater challenge causes in this thing that annoys us or frustrates us. It's about using visual management at this point, the source, to do that, to get people to agree on the problem. So that focusing in on what is the actual problem before we get into the actual solutions. Using this Gemba walk or these Gemba tools to support improvement and continuous improvement, and get the people who are closest to the work, those within our teams, to actually solve the problems and have the ability to solve root cause problems and to think deeply about their problems. So by getting down to the Gemba, challenging people to look at ways to actually do things, making sure that the progress pace at where it happens is enough to reach our goal as well. And while we're down there closest to the work, looking for leadership, looking for competencies, and being able to support those people to improve as well. But really, it's about what annoys you in the business, what annoys you in your processes, and trying to get as close as possible to that work to try and fix it. We know the situation isn't normal, but what would the ideal situation, what would that look like? What's the operator's opinion? Have we asked them? Is this a recurring issue? Is there an input that comes in there? I might just ask everyone to pop into a chat. What is it that actually annoys them in their business? If they were to change something that was frustrating them, a particular process, maybe it's a supplier, maybe it's a customer. What's one thing in your business processes that actually annoys you, that really needs to change? That's something that you always makes you kind of scratch your head when you go to actually complete the task. Mentioned waste a little bit earlier, but by going to the Gemba, by going to where the work takes place, by improving things and improving flow, maybe moving towards single piece or reduced batch sizes, you're looking to eliminate any of these kind of these lean 8 wastes from your business processes. And then from there, try and make the improvements. I see someone has popped in here. The same information having to be put into different reports and for variations. Yeah, again, that's the waste of excess processing or defects, having to do something more than once. It's also the waste of motion. Good example there. Getting standards into the recruitment process. Okay, so the recruitment process not being standardized, so having to systematize that as well. Not having clear roles and responsibilities and micromanagement. Again, that comes from probably not having standard work, and that micromanagement is probably inefficient. Micromanagement is annoying as well as inefficient for the managers as well, and particularly evident in smaller businesses where the structures aren't there as well. But yeah, absolutely. Another one there, similar. Supplier documentation is wrong, and first time in a lot of cases. So again, defects coming into our process and causing us to have to do rework or go and complete the process again. So yeah, some good examples there as well. And again, these templates are there from the previous sessions, which we'll share with you as well. But if you are picking a process that annoys you, something you want to change, something you want to improve, going to the Gemba, we have an example of an interview sheet here, which you can use. So when you go there and you observe and discuss with your operators or your people carrying out the work, you ask them what it is they're doing. Have they had issues before? Ask them for advice, maybe come up with some solutions as well. So some good templates that you can use there as well. But it takes from us as leaders within our business, I suppose. Julie, I'm setting you up for a great segue here now as well. It takes from us as leaders within our business to actually, not to go, oh, I'm sick of this. Why is it always like this? To actually be that little bit proactive in it and go, look, this is something that happens again and again. It's a recurring issue. It might be a small niggle, a couple of minutes, but it has to be frustrating for everybody else in the business. And to have those leadership competencies where we're willing to face up to the problem and kind of go and explore it and peel back the layers to see what else it actually shows as well. Which brings us lovely onto the leadership side of things and some big goals or small goals we can set there for this year.
Very nice transition, Stuart. Thank you.
I've been working on it all for the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, bringing into the people side of our business. And just even if you'd like to pop into the chat, what do you think are some of the top skills that would help people to be more effective leaders, especially maybe in the context that we're in? And you know, not even just for those in formal leadership positions, you know, like the manager in the title, but you know, any kind of influencing and motivating and bringing people along with you, leading people, and that's all leadership. So pop into the chat what you think the top leadership skills that you would reckon. And again, this kind of ties in actually to what Katie was saying about, you know, kind of not having micromanagement. You know, again, we want to be modeling that sort of that leadership. Humility is a great one, Owen, and listening to others. Definitely. Matthew, yeah, emotional intelligence, having a better understanding of others is usually something that people seem to lack. Yeah, I think everyone has room for improvement in terms of being able to kind of understand others and respond well to them. I don't know, Stuart, Sophie, any thoughts on these skills that you think would be an important leadership skill?
I always think listening and questioning. Yeah, I think listening and questioning would do, and I know one involves the speaking, but it's proper questioning and listening to the answers and challenging people. So absolutely, those particular skills of, you know, active listening, and clever questioning is maybe the wrong thing. It makes it sound like you're trying to outwit somebody, but you know, questioning, I think that exposes yourself. That exposes that you don't always understand, you know, so questioning, genuine questioning, as opposed, you get a lot of people who ask questions, but they know the answer and they're trying to prove a point. I think it's proper questioning in that sense.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah. And so, Sophie, I could see you just popped into the chat about, you know, kind of hearing about maybe the not so good side of leadership.
The glamorous side of it.
Yeah, exactly. And Ronan popped in, it was about consistency as well being one. So again, you know, people can kind of trust you and depend on you because you're reliable. Tom put in about self-awareness, you know, looking for collective success and prioritizing the team first as well. So I think those are all really, really important skills and attributes. But whatever you think is the most important for, you know, you to work on, I think it's really about setting your intention for that kind of, you know, we're at the start of the year. So people often set those kind of goals at the start of the year, but I mean, even at the start of each day, setting intentions. So again, those really small actions that you take on a daily basis will add up, and they might not sound as glamorous as the big significant steps that, you know, people might notice and praise you for, but it's those really, really small steps that are going to make the difference. So what my recommendation is to pick one relationship that you want to improve. So I'd invite you all to just think about that for a moment. Think of one person in your mind, that one relationship that is really important for you in your business. Maybe it's someone that you work with, maybe it's someone you manage or are managed by. Maybe it's a customer, a client, a stakeholder, you know, a supplier, whoever it might be, one relationship that's really important to you. You might be thinking it's someone that I'll need buy-in for my ideas in the future. Or maybe you have hired someone and you really want to increase the likelihood that they will stay working with you. Or maybe you want to progress your own career and you want to ensure that you're visible to those decision makers so that they know that you're ready and willing for more responsibility. Or again, maybe it's an important client that you want to work more with in the future. So just have a think in your mind, and you could even just jot down that person's name and maybe just rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. Rate your relationship where you think it's currently at. 10 being a really effective working relationship. You know, it doesn't have to be your best friends, because obviously if it's a client or anything like that, you know, but I'm talking about just a you know, really effective working relationship that there's, you know, trust and reciprocity and everything like that there. Or 1 on that scale being you hardly know them, they hardly know you. it's really just at the maybe very beginning of your relationship. So just jot down one relationship that you would like to improve this year, and maybe give it a score on a scale of 1 to 10 as to where you currently rate it. And what I recommend as my, it's hard to pick when there's so many great skills and really important skills. And I can see Colin as well popping into the chat saying just honesty is needed to understand problems, so all of the things that we mentioned, there's a lot to choose from. But what I would focus in on is that skill of empathy. So this skill often enters into those lists of high performing leaders and skills for the future of work. There's a quote as well that is often attributed to Maya Angelou, but I actually have heard that it's not something that she ever said, but it's a great quote anyway. That people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So if we just go on to the next slide, we have that just about empathy, but not only empathy, but really that it's balanced, it's smart. I think that sometimes, people think about empathy as just being nice to everyone, or just putting everyone else first all the time. But I think that can take away from results. So we need to balance it with an ability to be assertive and to set boundaries. It's smart because it's avoiding some of the potential pitfalls that I can touch on later. But why does this skill matter? Well, it's really, really key to building more trusting, better quality relationships, that there is that give and take. It allows you to create better teams, right? More inclusive, psychologically safe teams, and thus more high performing teams that can then make better decisions, that people can contribute, they can come up with new ideas, they feel their opinions are valued. And I'd say a lot of people on the call have the experience or know someone who has had the experience where, maybe you were in a workplace that maybe you didn't love the work, maybe it wasn't something you were really interested in, but you might have stayed because of the people. I've heard a lot of people saying that, like, oh, we just have, a great time. I think, my colleagues, there's a lot of respect, or there's a lot of just good, strong relationships. And that can make people much more likely to kind of give it their all and be committed and motivated to the work, even if the work itself isn't that interesting. So you're maximizing the likelihood that people are going to be really contributing members. And it maximizes the benefits of diversity as well. That you're able to recognize that there are different perspectives, there are different viewpoints. And when you're using empathy well, you're able to go, okay, that's a different way of seeing the world. I never considered that. And that's useful. And I can learn from that rather than I'm going to judge that or exclude that person or not listen to them. So it's really, got quite a lot of benefits. And as we say, it's not just about being nice at the expense of results. Kim Scott, in her book Radical Candor, calls it ruinous empathy when it's not sufficiently balanced with the ability to challenge directly. So especially if you're in a leadership role or a management role, you might be thinking, oh, well, I want to show my team that I respect them. I want to build good relationships with them. So I don't want to debate with them, or I won't maybe challenge them, or I won't tell them that they're not doing a good enough job because I don't want the relationship to suffer. But then, performance is likely to suffer and relationships might be damaged in the long run. Like in that book, Radical Candor, she tells that story of, a guy who really was underperforming, but he was a lovely guy. And so nobody told him, nobody challenged him until it came to, oh, okay, we have to let you go. And he was going, why did nobody tell me this sooner? Right. So the relationship was actually damaged by not challenging sufficiently. Another, I suppose, pitfall or danger or something to be mindful of when it comes to using this skill is that it can be quite draining. It can be tiring to feel the emotions of others, and especially when people are struggling and dealing with difficult emotions. So it does require energy. So it can be something that, maybe as a leader, if you might be feeling, I don't have the energy or the skill to feel what others are feeling. Another potential pitfall then is that it can be biased. We tend to be sort of hardwired to feel empathy more for people who are similar to us. So if someone we might be thinking, yeah, I'm really, really empathetic, but maybe it's more so to certain people that we can relate to or that are similar to us. So those are just a couple of things to be mindful of when it comes to working on developing this skill. But in relation to this skill, a couple of suggestions in terms of developing it that I've popped onto the next slide. So I think regardless...
Just to interrupt your flow, I thought the misattributed quotes, I was trying to source who actually did say it, and as I was sourcing who actually said it, someone said we need to stop misattributing quotes. So I don't believe it was my Andrew that said, I'll be back. At any point either as well. They did come up with a source for that, but she didn't actually say it apparently, but they haven't clarified who has actually said it as well. But we know she definitely didn't say I'll be back at any point as well.
Thank you for that. Yes. Yeah, see, that's it. I've never been able to find who actually said it, but yeah, so in terms of, developing this skill, I think regardless of how you plan to do it, if you're going to begin to work on developing your empathy and using it more often, I recommend setting an intention at the start of the day. So how are you going to show up? How are you going to behave in a way that shows others that you do care personally about them? So however that might be, maybe it's asking more open questions or listening and not interrupting, but figuring out what it is, what could you do to show that person that you care about them, and setting the intention at the start of the day, and just checking in with yourself maybe halfway through the day and at the end of the day, did I live up to that intention that I set for myself? So the first step or suggestion in terms of developing it, I would say, is trying to figure out where you're currently at. How often do you currently use this skill? So again, you might ask for feedback, maybe from that one relationship that you're trying to improve, asking for feedback. And, obviously if you go up to someone and say, do you think I'm empathetic? They'll probably say, yeah, sure. So it might be, asking maybe in a way that's a bit more like specific, saying, how well do you feel that I listened to you last week? Or do you see any opportunities for me to develop in relation to how we could communicate or interact? Right. So making it a little bit more specific. And if you're a leader, be prepared to probe that a little bit, because it is quite common for people to not want to give negative or constructive criticism or feedback to their manager. So they'll probably say, no, everything's great, everything's fine. And you might have to dig a little deeper rather than just accepting that at surface level, going, okay, there must be something. So everything's perfect. Okay, come on, there must be something that I can work on. So that's just more so if you're the manager. And then, yeah, reflecting for yourself and being honest with yourself, how often am I currently using it? And what would it look like if it was just a little bit more effective? The second one then, really important, is practicing active listening. So trying to just listen to understand rather than to respond. So it's listening without trying to just confirm or reject what they're saying. It's listening, being aware of the fact that you're going to have biases or opinions, and it's just pausing the urge to provide those opinions or to give advice or to judge or evaluate. The third suggestion is to try where you can to swap judgment for curiosity. So if someone has a different way of doing things to you, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. Again, this could be about maybe if there's a new technology coming in or a new person coming in or people that are very different to you that you're working with. Just reminding yourself that that's an opportunity to learn from them, that you don't have to agree with them, but the aim is to just understand them, because empathy isn't endorsement. It's not about just always agreeing with someone. It's being willing to have productive conversations and challenge them, but also being willing to have yourself challenged as well. And then the last one is a kind of activity that you can do. It's, reminding yourself of the ways in which a person is just like you. So if this might be in particular, if it's someone that maybe you can't really understand, or maybe you clash with them a little bit, this could be just 2 minutes where you think, how is this person like me? And I have some examples there, like, they want to do a good job and feel respected, just like me. This person has worries and fears, just like me. They have a family, they have hobbies, they have things they care about. So do I, so it's just reminding yourself of that common ground. And another kind of offshoot on that is, if you, I suppose, again, you're clashing with someone, you're finding it difficult, you're maybe describing them more so in negative terms, you might try to take 2 minutes and describe them using only positive terms. So if someone's saying, oh, they're so pedantic and, nitpicking, you might say, oh, they're really detail oriented and they value high standards. So you've got the two sides. If you're describing them using only negative terms, try and just switch it a little bit to remind yourself that there is more to this person than first meets the eye. So that is what I was thinking in terms of leadership, and what I think is an important skill to develop there.
There's a message in from Ronan about what do you think of David Brent-itis when leadership turns performative. But Ronan, just to prepare you, I mean, I've tripped myself up in the office in the last couple of weeks with references to people who I thought were funny, and these guys here had never heard of them. Like, who never heard of Debbie McGee or Del Boy or Monch 2 Rodney? And so I don't know, Julie, Sophie, do you know who David Brent is?
I'm more of a US office kind of fan.
Apologies, Ronan. These young people may not know. I have tried to perform the robot dance. I have tried to perform the robot dance here in the office, but nobody got
The raucous applause,
So Michael Scott, he's rephrased the question. Thanks, Ronan, to Michael Scott and Michael Scott-itis.
When leadership turns performative. So, okay, yeah. So that kind of. Ronan,
the removal of authenticity, I suppose, from the behavior, where you can tell it's an act, a performance, exactly what Ronan has said. Sorry, Julie.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I think that a lot of people can spot that, and I suppose it's just I kind of think that, say, what I was speaking about in terms of that empathy, I think it's really getting to know people on the sort of one-to-one level, and learning, what interests them, what motivates them, having those kind of conversations. And then, I suppose with a leader, it's very much putting other people first. So yeah, I think most people can probably spot when it becomes that performance. So I suppose it's just coming back to, I think if a leader maybe feels that they're being sort of performative, it might be then a case of coming back to, okay, well, what are my values? What's most important to me? Who am I, and how do I want to show up? How do I try and be the best version of myself, I suppose.
I wonder, it's a tough question how you broach that. How does and Roland, you're welcome to jump on if you want. How do you broach that conversation? Who broaches that conversation about the lack of the leader's authenticity, or whether they're a real person or not? Kim, that lady Kim, that the sorry, her second name escapes me there.
Kim Scott, is it?
Yeah, the Kim Scott. How would she address that? Is it up to do you escalate it? Is court gonna?
Yeah, I think it's. I think if, like, say, for example, if you were a subordinate and you were trying to, I suppose maybe give that feedback to the leader that, I feel like I don't know you, or I feel like I don't know who you are. it's, I think, starting with looking for feedback, starting with trying to be radically candid and, testing the waters, maybe if it's not the norm. So starting looking for feedback, looking for, ways to improve. And then maybe, are you open to receiving feedback as well, just in the interest of us being at our best and being, achieving high performance. And again, the leader, if they say no, maybe leave it for the moment and keep being yourself, keep being the radically candid self, and trying to build up towards that. So yeah, I think the first step is trying to get feedback yourself and showing that you're open to that.
And yes, so thanks, Julie. Just some other parts here from Ronan that David O'Doherty quoted. That's if it was David O'Doherty and it wasn't Darth Vader who said it, but let's assume it's David O'Doherty, that you can't consider yourself controversial. But I mean, just to kind of wrap that up, I guess in here just about making a deal about being a good leader, being vocal, I suppose, about it. It's not the leader who decides if they're a good leader. All you can do is just be yourself and be as open and transparent as possible. And if that doesn't work, well, what else can you do? You can only, as I tell my daughter, you can only be yourself. Everyone else is taken. So go with that approach as well. Thanks, Julie. Sophie, how are you this morning?
I'm very well, lads. How are you keeping?
Good.
Good. We're going to chat about the sustainability side of it, which is usually the mood killer. But we'll go on with it anyway. So we're going to chat about this thing of, understanding your impacts. But I suppose the first thing we need to kind of address is, sustainability can mean so many different things for different people. There's this broad understanding of environmental sustainability, essentially meaning, meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to also meet their needs. But I've kind of found in practice, it kind of takes different forms. So for some businesses, this means sourcing their produce from local suppliers, so that way they know their produce is ethically sourced and supports local economies. And then for others, it really comes down to, reducing their dependence on, the Earth's finite resources and maybe switching over to more renewable source. So it can be quite a personal thing. If anyone feels comfortable sharing what they believe sustainability to mean for them, I'd love to hear it. But I suppose regardless, at the end of the day, it really comes down to minimizing the negative impacts that you have on the world around you. And to minimize it, we actually need to understand it. So that's the first thing that we need to do. So the one thing that we're looking at in terms of minimizing the impacts that we put on the world around us. So we're going to move on to the next slide there, Stuart, and we'll talk about, we're kind of already broadly aware of the benefits of sustainability and I suppose minimizing our impacts. I'm sure you're aware yourself. I don't think it's news to anyone about the environmental situation that we find ourselves in currently. But I suppose by addressing, our impacts and taking accountability for our efforts, the benefits to the wider world are really endless. So we're really talking about stuff like reduction in global emissions. It weakens our dependence on non-renewable source of energy, and it kind of decreases the burden on natural resources. So another thing that's kind of important here, it also drives innovation. So, introducing new designs, when you kind of have, when there's constraints on how you can use energy, carbon, water, materials, you kind of get more imaginative in how, you can best use them. But I suppose within business internally, look, again, the benefits are endless. So of course, the big one is you reduce your impact, your carbon footprint, and the pressure that you place on the world's natural resources. And that's from your day-to-day operations. But another big one, which I'm sure you're aware of, is reducing cost. Look, it's no surprise to anyone. Everyone has seen the electricity and fuel bills. If you can minimize and reduce the amount that you're using, you'll save money in the long run. Coming on to this idea of, I suppose, brand differentiation is something that we kind of see a lot with I suppose, the businesses that we work with. So it's this idea of, I suppose, having a social purpose. And we kind of look at this as that it does drive, I suppose, consumer purchasing decisions. And then this kind of enables you and your business to kind of look at, what can we try a price premium? Can this lead to increased revenue? And we're seeing it we're seeing it live. Companies like Patagonia have had huge increases in their sales. They introduced the self-imposed earth tax, which is a 1% of their profits in China, would go back into, I suppose, supporting environmental endeavors. So We also see stuff like, you know, operational efficiency, you know, decreasing the company's footprints in packaging, you know, your waste, materials used, the waste reduction. You know, the potential for cost savings here is really huge. Another thing I suppose just to be cognizant of is this idea of, you know, risk and resiliency. So look, we are in the middle of an energy crisis. Businesses that have firstly, I suppose, reduced their energy use and then maybe invested in renewable energy sources, you know, have found themselves, you know, a little bit more able to kind of deal with the situation that we're currently in. And that's super important because really, you know, we didn't really foresee this time last year. It was hard to kind of tell what the future would hold. So it's important to kind of build this resiliency into your business. And then the last kind of thing that I've touched on here is this idea of, you know, improving your image. And look, that one's self-explanatory. It looks good, you know, when businesses take accountability for their impacts and you know, actively addresses them. And again, this ties into the idea of the brand differentiation here. So we kind of know what the benefits are. The kind of tricky part is, you know, identifying them, which we'll touch on now in the next slide, Stuart, if you could share that. So.
And it's great to see those the benefits kind of laid out like that, and you know, people know, but I think we talk about this all the time internally here, and we've talked about it in buzzwords before, and we'll probably talk about buzzwords in the future again. But that I think, well, there's a benefit. There's one for me, there's one for you, and there's one for all of us. You know that you know, there's a benefit for all of us and an impact on all of us. I think even with Julie's talk about kind of leadership, empathy, and relationship, the understanding our impact, and the same with the lean part bit earlier as well, is also key.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of lay it out because I suppose I've never been fond of this idea of, you know, you should do it for the sake of doing it. You know, I'd like to kind of emphasize that, look, there is benefits to you, to your business, but look, there's benefits to everyone else around you when it's done right as well. Which I think is kind of super important in getting people on board, you know, with whatever efforts they see are most appropriate to them. But look, I suppose we kind of need to be able to identify what we're looking at. So we need to kind of look at, you know, our inputs, processes, and outputs. So I think for here we've used, you know, making a cup of tea for an example, which is, I suppose, quite a good example. I think I read somewhere that I think Irish people drink about 300 litres of tea a year, right? 4 to 6 cups every day.
I'm going to say it's possibly people like you that lower that average, though, Sophie.
Not a tea drinker.
I'm going to out you now in buzzwords as not being a hot drinker. I'm still not over it, but I'm coming to terms with it.
Yeah.
The shame you've brought to the office here, not drinking tea. Think
of all the energy I'm saving, Stuart. Yeah. So look, it's our inputs. Yeah, 46 cups a day. I'm not sure, Ronan, that could be more, right? So yeah, inputs. Look, for the cup of tea, it's self-explanatory: water, milk, sugar, tea, kettle, cup, spoon. So this is the material that you will need, you know, to make the cup of tea, and you can apply the exact same principle to the raw materials that you need in your business. So you'll find that the resources that you do use in your business will impact the world around you, I suppose, and you kind of begin to question, you know, what is the environmental impact felt in manufacturing it? Or the opposite, in taking it away? You know, by taking away this resource, does it leave less for other people to use? What is the environmental and social impact of me using this resource? So we have our raw materials there, but, you know, how are we going to use them? So this process involved, I suppose, in making your product or performing your service. So the cup of tea, boil the water, put it in, you know, and stir. That's essentially what it comes down to. But I suppose the thing to keep, I suppose, mindful of here is the power and energy involved in this. So within your business, you'll find that the process side of it kind of affects the environment via the pollution end. So when you're boiling a kettle, what are you using? Are you using electricity? Where is it formed? How is it sourced? How is it generated? And then when we kind of get to what we're left with at the end, so our outputs. So we see that we're left with a cup of tea. That's great. That was our goal. But we also have byproducts here that we're also left with, that you also need to kind of, you know, address how we're going to dispose of them or reuse them. So in this analogy, you know, with the tea bag, that can go into compost, but the cup and teaspoon, you know, they'll have to be washed, which in itself has its own, I suppose, impacts. You know, regardless of your business, you're usually always going to be left with unintended end products, and you'll find that the outputs and that your outputs, I suppose, impact the world around you in two main ways. So this is your waste generation and then your pollution. So we know where to find our impact. So I just want to briefly touch on, I suppose, in the next slide, what we're going to focus on. So we're going to focus on 4 key areas. Stuart, if you just want to share that. So there's many ways to go about it, when identifying our impacts, but a good place to start is to kind of look at what we're looking at here. So we're looking at our raw materials, our waste generation, our energy use, and our people. So when we talk about our raw materials, we're really bringing it back to the idea of what are our inputs. So bringing to question, what are the natural, artificial, technological resources and materials that you need to use day to day? How are they made and manufactured? Who manufactures them? Where are they coming from? How far do they have to travel? When we look at our energy use, we're looking at how do we use energy? Are we using it effectively, efficiently? Where is it sourced? How is it generated? When we talk about waste generation, we're very much talking about, what business activities are you producing that put a stress on landfill? What is the distribution of your waste? How much are you recycling versus how much is going into general waste? How much of this material is actually usable within your business if you use it in a different way? How much pollution are you causing? And then finally, we're left with the idea of the people side of it. So this is something, I suppose, it's a little bit harder to tangibly measure. So what we're really chatting about here is the people that your business come into contact with. How does it affect them? So how does it affect your employees? How does it affect your communities? Do you provide a vital resource, a vital service? Are you part of the local community? Do you have a stake in the community's well-being? So it brings up a lot of questions about, it brings up a lot of questions and how we manage them and where we go from here. So in the next slide, we're going to kind of address on how do we source this information? What are we really looking at? So there's a lot to deal with here already in the sustainability end, and I suppose the topic of today's buzzwords is focusing on that one thing. So my advice would be to focus on one thing. What draws your attention? What resonates with you? What is the easiest to start with, and begin there? So if you want to start with your raw materials, it's as simple as speaking to your suppliers. Find out, understand their business processes, where are they sourcing their materials from? What's involved in harnessing the materials? Is there less energy intensive materials? If we want to look at energy use, an excellent place to start would be to analyze your energy bills. It's as simple as that. Trying to identify hotspots or spikes in use. Understand, why is it this high? Is it machinery? Is it left idle? Is it on standby? And then maybe if you find, look, you're happy with the amount you're using, maybe you could assess the energy source. Is a renewable form of energy? Is it a viable option? And what's the level of, I suppose, capital and commitment that's needed to kind of carry that through? And then the waste generation, much the same process. So it's as simple as auditing what you're putting into your bins, how much of it and how frequently, get an understanding of where your waste come from. Are you producing too much? If you change a process within your day-to-day operations, can you reduce that waste? Can you use it somewhere else? A good place to start for benchmarking is exactly the same. Look at your bin waste, look at the kgs you produce. And then finally come to the end of this idea of getting to know your community. It's simple as just talk to them, understand what they see as the benefit of your corporation, of your business. What do they like? What do they dislike? Kind of think about if your business was to close tomorrow, how would that impact the people around you and impact the community in general? So my advice, focus on one of them, do it well, and then make your way around the circle until you're content that you've all of them under control. It will involve, I suppose, this kind of idea of continuous improvement, but when we kind of address it and looking at one at a time, it does become a much more manageable endeavor.
Okay, that's great, Sophie. And I think as people start to make differences and to make changes and to improve what they do, and they might be doing it to save time and money, there is always an impact on sustainability. And I mean, as I've been thinking to you for the last while, is we should make sure people know that what they're doing has this benefit, and that they're talking about that as well. Process improvement, efficiency, lean, all of that, it's intrinsically linked. There is a sustainability output to all of that, as well as you, Julie, on our head there, as well as a cultural output to it as well. You improve these things, it's better for the it's better for the business, better for the process, better for the people doing it, better for the culture of the organization, and it's better for the communities in which we operate in as well. Julie, you're nodding your head if you something to come in.
No, I was really thinking that as well as you were speaking, Sophie. I was just thinking, like, it really goes back to what Stuart was saying at the start about like a process that kind of annoys you. Do you know, like if I'm looking at my bins overflowing or my energy bill, that's going to start annoying me. And it's just looking then at that process with fresh eyes, because, you know, again, we sometimes fall in the habit of, okay, we use this and that's the waste or that's the output, but then going, well, hang on, does it have to be, you know? So yeah, I think it's just really related there. So yeah.
Yeah, and my single greatest act of civil disobedience is in Lidl and Aldi is to take all the excess packaging off the fruit and veg and leave it in the store, because eventually it'll annoy them enough that they'll stop producing the stuff in the excess packaging, you know. And it's about shifting the dial and whose problem it is to solve. It's not Tesco's problem when I have to go to fill my recycling bin 3 times a week of cardboard and packaging and all that. And it's great that it's recyclable, but it's still another trip to the dump or to the recycle bins or whatever that I have to do. So, you know, shifting that dial, you know, and again, making it something that Dave to do or Dave to oversee, making it, you know, I think is kind of good there as well. Start rolling here, they'll start selling bundles, they'll start selling the bundles of packaging in the middle aisle as insulation. Yeah, quite possibly as well. My kids love an old cardboard box on the way to the dump. But yeah, absolutely, you know, it'll be repurposed or reduced or reused. Something will happen, but we've got to talk about it more as well, I think. And this is, you know, get one thing, do it, and do it kind of right as well. Guys, we're going to go a little bit over on time. Just to let you know, we won't go much past, we won't be going beyond 5 past or 5 or 10 past 12 at the very latest. If anyone needs to drop off, that's absolutely no problem. You're not hostages here, you're all willing volunteers. And if you watch the recording will be popped up later on, so you'll be able to see anything you missed at that point as well. The final part really is just this digital part, this digital pillar to our business. And really just making sure we're digitally ready for the business, you know, and thinking about in our organization, you know, are there going to be new areas of business that we can explore? Can we innovate kind of beyond our existing product offering, and with continuous experimentation get to a new place? You know, when we talk about digital, you know, how are we going to motivate our employees? Are they going to be adaptable into this new world as well? And so getting that right mix of people into the business, redesigning the workplace, and making sure we have the digital infrastructure in place to actually do it as well. And they're all the things we need to really be clear about as we step and consider our business from a digital perspective. The goals of a digital transformation project in our business, and a lot of us would think of that in terms of a website or something along those lines, or a CRM. And there's benefits to that from an efficiency perspective, you know, so you'll save time, save money, you'll get reductions in paper uses, you might get faster response times to customer queries, improving customer service. You might improve team morale as well along the way, reduce errors. I think that somebody had mentioned earlier on about documentation as well. So digital means all of that to all of us. But really what I would say to you, if we do one thing only, you know, and have one thing on your list in terms of your business and digitization, is just to stop doing anything for the moment, and to just try and spend time working on what is the digital future of your business. So, you know, if you're running a service business or a production business and you make something physical, you know, how is your business going to look like in a couple of years? Are people still going to require that product? Are we going to need to have a digital version of it? If we deliver consultancy or training services face to face, are we going to take that online? Is it still going to be carried out live online? Is it going to be an e-learning aspect? Is it going to be a blended learning approach? Whatever it is, it's about stopping to consider your business and how it's going to look like in the future. And that's a serious piece of kind of reflection. It's hard to stop moving forward in that case, but it's about kind of going broad, going wide, looking at the trends, and looking at what your competitors are doing and the industry leaders and what new technologies are coming as well. One of the ways to do that is this digital transformation canvas, which we covered again in one of the earlier buzzword sessions when we went through the 7 building blocks. Again, you can access that recording up there as well, and we can make the template available to you. The 7 building blocks looks at your business from a digital perspective across customer centricity, emerging technologies, migrating to the cloud versus on premises, digital business development, process engineering, which is using technology to make things more efficient, improving your culture, and then a digital marketing perspective. But look, the one thing, if you were to pick one block out of that for me for this year, what your focus would be, if you had to prioritize between that stop and assessment, it's definitely your business development. Is your business going to be here? Is it going to be relevant? How is it going to be carried out? Are you going to be able to do it? Have you got the people around you to do it as you go into the future? And that really is key. So how future-proofed is my business? What are competitors and innovative companies doing? They don't even have to be the same, but they can be similar. Okay. How are we currently delivering our services? So what platforms or products? What models? How can we change our business model as well? And what other innovations can we expect to leverage as things come out? I think of a music school we were working with recently, which carried out lessons in person. Then digital transformation for them during COVID was carry out lessons on Zoom, which didn't necessarily work. And future digital innovation for them is e-learning, learning a song, fully automated. So it's not live teaching anymore. It's maybe more focused teaching on, particular songs, particular instruments, particular skills. We hear so many stories of younger people now learning by themselves. They're not learning by a book. They're learning from YouTube. They're learning from TikTok or something like that. I actually think what it was actually called at the time. So they're learning from YouTube, and they're finding somebody who's giving tutorials. And maybe businesses need to change from that, or we have to consider, well, if we were to take that approach, how does our existing business model work? And if it was delivered entirely online, how would that work? Now, for some businesses, if we deliver products, food products, for example, these things physically still have to make it out. But how are our customers going to engage with us? How are they going to buy from us? How are they going to buy from the supermarkets? How are we going to compete? And considering all of that from our digital business, it's not just a website. It's not just a CRM or accounts package. There's more to it than that. So I said, if I was to set one thing that you do from a digital perspective, it would definitely be to consider where your business is going to be positioned, and what all of the emerging technologies are actually going to do, and what your competitors are doing, and kind of spend that time by just researching what it is that's out there to improve your business. Do that, and you'll get benefits in terms of process engineering, process efficiency, save time and money, like we talked about with lean. And as Sophie talked about earlier, there's also be sustainability benefits to all of that as well. If we kind of reduce the impact of our customers having to drive somewhere for lessons, they can take them online. We maybe even increase our market share because we're not geographically restricted anymore as well. And making sure our people have bought into that. Julie, just a quick question for you in terms of digital readiness and people. Can you see a specific type of leadership skill or employee skill that kind of is linked into this being digital ready or embracing digital change?
Yeah, that's a good question. I suppose flexibility being one, a kind of willingness to do things differently and to see things differently, and kind of like what you're saying there about stopping and looking at, I suppose what we've talked about across all of the domains is looking at what we're doing, trying to just get a completely fresh set of eyes and going, what are we really doing here? And yeah, so I suppose that flexibility, I suppose that kind of willingness to be open to change, and that curiosity, I'd say that's probably a valuable skill and I suppose recognizing that every person will probably feel a little bit different about change. Some people love novelty and change, they find it exciting. Other people absolutely dread it and really struggle with it, and some people are somewhere in the middle where I'll change, but it has to make a lot of sense. I have to really see the rationale behind it. So recognizing that there will always be those different perspectives on it.
Okay, brilliant. So making sure I think that all sounds like, it would take empathy from as well, you know, so that core competency of empathy and improving relationships will be key in there as well. So look, guys, just to summarize, you know, focus on one thing at a time. We've contradicted that by giving you 4 things, but they're 4 things in 4 pillars. Now, to be honest, the irony wasn't lost in the eyes when we were planning out today as well. You know, pick one thing, but here's 4. But in your lean and operations, you know, find something that annoys you. It shouldn't be hard. And fix it. Okay, go to the Gemba, go to where the problem is, map the process, identify the waste, work with the people closest to it, and try and fix that. I mean, that's the key as well. Again, tools and templates were covered in a previous session. Contact us if you can't access them, and we can talk you through that. In terms of leadership, you know, develop empathy, become and improve one relationship. That's not one in the year. Set your goals a bit higher than that. You know, pick a relationship. Maybe it's daily. You know, that you're going to reach out to somebody, try and make things better from there as well. Understand your impact. This maps across all of the pillars, but definitely understand your impact from a sustainability perspective. When you carry out your process, you've got your inputs, your process, and your outputs for making your cup of tea or carrying out your work. What is your impact? Maybe you have 0 impact, okay? But at least know that so you can carry on forward as well. And then with your digital perspective, again, similar to understanding your impact, understanding where you're at and what the future of your business is, and just setting aside some time out that isn't firefighting. We have to have a website. It isn't catching up. It's how can we be different? What will the future bring? And how are we going to grow into that position or plan for that position as well? So guys, thanks for your time. Just to repeat my joke, like Maya Angelou, we'll be back next month or in a few weeks for the next Buzzwords, which is going to be about the behavior around setting goals and in this session, you know what it is we want to achieve, what the common challenges are, how to get over procrastination and fear of failure that can get in the way. So a deeper dive on the actual behaviors that we need to adopt for there as well. As usual as well, if you want to keep in touch, you can scan the QR code or just join the LinkedIn group. All of these links will be in the email that Andre will send out. So the LinkedIn group is one of them. We'll keep things updated on Eventbrite as well. So if you like, you can, once you've picked up tickets there, you'll be on that mailing list as well. And if anybody wants to hang on for a few more minutes, or we'll hang on for a few more minutes if anyone wants to chat. If not, we will catch you all in a few weeks for the goal setting workshop.
Thanks
very much, lads. Very helpful. We'll see you at the next one.
See you at the next one.
Brilliant. See you then.